Disclaimer. We are in no way affiliated with Talsorian Games, and this is just our opinion as humble consumers of their great product. Hey everyone, Emil here with the pre-show of episode 30 of DoubleDM podcast. This pre-show is a long one, so let's get right into it. First up, big news. Untitled Chapter episode 2 is out now, featuring the most wonderful guests of all time. Ellie from Dice Drop, Haley from Party of Two, Avalanche Art History, and Amber, the literal Swiss Army knife of TTRPG. Yeah, that dude Marka is also there. Next up, we also want to shout out Abyssal Bruce and congratulate them on their newest release of Campfire, an elegant travel system making travel engaging and fun. Trust me, I have my copy secured and it definitely is gonna be implemented at my tables. It's gorgeously illustrated by Fernando and super well written by Matthew. We also want to shout out Thinking Critically. I was on an episode of his show about failure in D&D and it was a great discussion and you should definitely check it out, and a lot of other episodes they do. Now, some stuff regarding us. We made 2k followers on Twitter, so thank you for everyone. That's fucking awesome. A giveaway and a lot more stuff is coming your way, trust me. Really guys, we have so much stuff brewing behind the scenes. The giveaway, so much more stuff like an AMA, and a lot of other stuff we can't just talk about. And with that, I would love for you guys to throw us a nice review or follow us on social media to get the show out there. And now, enjoy episode 30 of DoubleDM, the Witcher TRPG, and our experience with it. Hello and welcome everybody to the next episode of DoubleDM podcast, episode 30. What up, what up?
Yeah.
Man, can you imagine that we already have 30 episodes of DoubleDM podcast out?
Not really. It's
Not
just
really, right?
No, and how fast we grew, and wow.
We've started recording first day of February. It's now August.
Yeah.
Like, this episode is gonna come out in September, but it's
Yeah.
August. That's now around half a year. We made 700 listens. We made several weeks with over 50 listens each in the last few weeks. We made 1.7 thousand Twitter followers and are way on our way to break 2k by the end of the year, even before that, probably end October. My goal was 1k at the end of the year. We are over 700 more than that already.
To be quite honest with you, I didn't have any goal whatsoever. I just wanted to make a fun podcast and have fun doing it.
Can't work, you need to have a goal.
Yeah, my goal was to have fun, and I do.
Fuck.
Gotcha.
I'm just gonna cut this out and nobody's gonna ever hear you say that, so I win.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it's a mind-boggling journey, right?
Yeah,
it
is.
I never imagined to be in this position. Like, I imagined that we just do this recording, but I never imagined that that also means having listens, like over 700 of them.
Exactly. It's just kind of insane.
Yeah, it is. So, has anything happened to you in the last 2 weeks since we recorded? Because we didn't record last week.
I just had multiple small sessions, one of which you were a player as well.
Mm-hmm.
The last Sunday, I had one shot.
Mm-hmm.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Set in my own homebrew world in Fantasy Japan, where my group of players started at level 8,
Mm-hmm.
and they were tasked to find a black lotus which just blooms on the blood moon. When a monastery teleports to the material plane to let the lotus bloom in the light of the blood moon, they had to infiltrate it, and it was a monastery of demony shadow sorcerers. Because one of them had wings, they basically skipped the whole dungeon, and one of them died because of it, because he was in the boss room alone, triggering the boss without his companions.
Wow.
Yeah, shit happens, but yeah, it still worked out.
that's sometimes the nature of a game, right? Sometimes it happens. Yeah, the only thing I can say is I hope everyone had fun playing.
Yeah, definitely. It was an awesome thing just having this player. He thought he could just outsmart the dungeon itself because they dispelled the wall of force around the pit that led down to the Black Lotus.
Uh-huh.
And then he was totally shocked that in this room, where the center of this whole monastery is built around, the boss would appear. Who would have guessed that?
Not me.
Yeah, definitely not, sure. But then the spirit of the leader of the monastery, which died, or the leader died several hundred years back, and they wanted to revive him with this Black Lotus. Yeah, the spirit of him came back and tried to defend it. They didn't thought of it, and then, yeah, he got clapped by a ghost.
Clapped by a ghost. That's something one should put on a t-shirt, by the way.
Yeah. Maybe we should.
Maybe we should. I don't know how to design t-shirts. I'm bad. No, we shouldn't try that.
I mean, I can draw, but I don't know how to design properly yet. Maybe?
Nope.
Huh.
I don't know.
Better not to touch that. Is there anything that happened to you in the last 2 weeks?
So I just had a session where we were in enemy territory, in the Empire's territory, and well, we were supposed to go into this mansion of a high-ranking official in this empire. We went inside, or I went as the rogue of the two-player party, invisible. And well, the high-ranking official seems to be someone very OP and skilled in finding invisible targets.
That's a bummer.
She found me out. She knew that I was there, and basically I got chased through the mansion until I got to hide again. And I had some tools in my depository. I had some things to work with in there. So I had to play around a bit, play a little bit of cat and mouse, and then I got into her personal room to find the personal documents she had. None of them helped me. None.
That's a huge bummer.
So I had to flee. So I fled, reported back to the person we were supposed to report back to, and then the party, like the bard and I, we just fled. We ran away, invisible, ran through the harbor, into the river, and out into the mountains. Now we're gonna hide out in a certain mountain fortress because it's a safe house, and yeah, we're gonna see if we can find anything there that can help us. We're gonna hope that the people that are still in the city, from which there are still 5 NPCs in the city from our Thieves Guild my character works at, that they are gonna find out more, because basically I've snooped out the whole house, every room. But a few. There are a few which I didn't snoop into. Like, there was a big living space where like 5 guards were in, protecting different doors into that living room. So I was like, yeah, no, I can't go through there. That's impossible.
Yeah, way too risky.
But I found out the private quarters, and I thought I would at least find a name, right? No name of that person, nothing. It kind of bummed me out because I did expect to find at least something. I'm not gonna say that my DM did a bad job about it. It wasn't a mistake on his part or anything that he did wrong, because I totally expected that there isn't much in that room. I thought as much because they weren't in that room working. So that room didn't seem to be actually a workplace, so there wouldn't be any documents. But I thought to find at least something that I could use as information.
At least having a name, just a name, is so much stuff you can go on and on about. Getting information through different sources about this name is just powerful thing you can have to further the story.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the name would have been probably enough to find out what the person that we were supposed to investigate would be doing there. Because when we know the name of that high-ranking official, like, we would know maybe who they are, what their special field is. Because from my perspective, the only thing I saw is that she had personal imperial guards of the emperor. So I thought that she was maybe someone of the imperial family, which could be true. That's something I wanted to confirm as a player and as a character. But second of all, she could also be a court mage. She could be an assassin. She could be an investigator. She could be an advisor. And I was like, I want to find out at least what position that person holds, to find out what they are doing here. Because my character, Noelle, isn't the type that does a lot of information gathering. Like, she's not the person that goes to someone and asks them to gather information for her. She's the one person that goes, okay, there's the mansion, there's the person inside, I'm gonna go inside and I'm gonna find out myself. And like, Noella's smart enough to know that if she would have gotten the position of that person, she could have made an educated guess as to what that person is doing there, because she knows what's up in the region. She knows of things, she knows stuff. So knowing that there maybe is a demonology expert, because our campaign revolves around demons, would have been very helpful in guessing what the Empire is doing with high-ranking officials so far at the front of the war.
Yeah.
That's literally like taking 100 meters into one direction and you're basically out of Empire territory. The Empire only owns that city and it's one of the farthest points they have gone. So finding out what is in there and what they are doing at the front of the war is very important.
Definitely.
We also had a session together.
We both were players in this one.
Yeah, a friend of ours offered to DM a one-shot.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
It was fun.
I played a really, really edgy character. Like, imagine any type of edgy character and turn it up to 100 sort of situation. Well, my parents weren't dead, or at least not confirmed dead.
I think the thing is, your character wasn't really edgy because you didn't play him edgy. Like, the backstory, yeah, it's a one-shot. You don't have really backstories. You have some information, but it's not much than some stuff. But the other things you had was basically, I'm a vampire blood hunter, which sounds edgy, yes.
Yeah.
It also is edgy, yes, but you didn't play it like you were edgy, except that one time you actually ate the dreams of our dark elf ranger.
Yeah.
That was pretty fucking dope.
Yeah, and if it would have been a longer campaign, I would go more into that. But with this one shot, we had this sort of travel arc, basically, and then the final dungeon crawl. And in a dungeon crawl, you can't really eat people's dreams when they are not asleep.
Yeah.
And because I'm not a wizard, I can't put people to sleep to eat their dreams. But
I mean, I have to say that whole traveling in that game kind of bored me, because like, it's the same thing with getting to know the people you play with, or the party you have, right?
Yeah.
It's this, we skip the introductions because that sometimes takes time and we don't have that time in a one shot. And I was like, okay, why can't we just completely skip this traveling and get to where we want to go? Problem being that where we wanted to go is a dungeon, and a dungeon is also not that exciting. Like, a dungeon crawl can be very exciting. I'm not saying that I already ended a bad job, because I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, same here.
It's traveling with like 2 rolls a day, 1 random occurrence, and that's it. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's not gonna work, because then I just want to speed up the process and have the mystery of what we were supposed to do. Because the mystery was, we have an explorer at an excavation site. He didn't respond anymore. You need to find him. And I was like, okay, cool, that could be very fun. The thing was that the excavation site was a big door in the mountains. Then we can at least guess where he went. Yeah, like, I'm not saying that it's bad, but it was all very, very obvious and no mystery attached to it, which I think is one of the big things I love in D&D or every TTRPG, is when I, as the player or as the character, have to find out information. When I have to make some guesses, have to take chances on stuff, and that's the fun part. Taking these chances, making these guesses, and just having fun with the consequences of my playstyle.
Yeah.
I played Sorcerer Warlock, half demon. Could sound very edgy, but she definitely wasn't edgy. She was this very dry, sarcastic British asshole.
She was just a bitch.
No. She that's what I have to say. Melody is the bitch. She isn't a bitch. She has lived for so long that she is so self-conscious that she just doesn't care about politeness anymore.
She just doesn't give a shit.
Exactly. She just can't give a shit anymore. She has given all her fucks already.
Yeah, she just ran out of fucks to give. Yeah.
She is so sarcastic and dry to everyone. She is downright sometimes insulting, but in a charming way, at least.
Yeah.
She doesn't try to be charming, at least how I played her, but there's the certain charm to this mystery around her that she basically plays out to her advantage, being this very upfront, no fucks given, no small talk, no politeness. She's a very direct woman.
Yeah, it's alarmingly charming sometimes, but on the other hand, you just get insulted a lot.
Yeah. The thing is about Melody is she's also very insulting to herself.
Yeah.
She has no emotions in the sense that she can't care about herself less. She's just her. She doesn't want to change herself. She has no interest in more or less actually also material value. She doesn't have any interest in money because knowledge is more important.
Yeah.
Favors are more important.
Definitely.
Money she just uses to get the things from the people that only think about money. That's Melody.
For Melody, money is a tool which she uses to get what she wants.
Yeah, Melody's character I would love to play again at some point because I think there's a lot more stuff to have with that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
One thing we had as well in the last 2 weeks was the finishing up of our Witcher mini campaign.
And because we are finished now, we decided to do an episode talking about our experience with that campaign and the system The Witcher 2. Give you guys an overview of the system we played and how it felt and how we liked it, what we didn't like, to maybe give you a review, you could say, even though we are not reviewers. Like, we're just gonna sit here and talk about our experience and opinion, and you can make out of that whatever you want, right?
Definitely.
So, first question, how did you discover the system? How did you start playing it?
I did start playing it because you said, hey, I have this Witcher RPG sitting here around and I want to play it. Would you like to join us? And I said, heck yeah, I love the Witcher games. I love the world. Hell yes, why not? Why wouldn't I join? And that's how I came to play.
Nice. I had the system in my back pocket for like a year before we actually started playing it. For one-shots, I always wanted to play it. I love the Witcher games. I love the books. I love the world. I love everything about it. I love the Netflix series. Yeah, and that's the thing. I had the system for a long time. A slot opened up out of my Sunday campaign where one player couldn't make it because of exams, and we didn't want to do that session without him or without any player. So we said, okay, let's do one shot. And we basically played with everyone out of that game, plus you, plus the girlfriend of one of our players as a new player to play that. And that was 6 players. It was way too much. It may even work good for duet player when I think about it. You could just play one Witcher and a lot of NPCs. Yeah, we had that game. It was a fun one shot, but after that I said I want to play this game more.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then I took out of that group only the 3 players out of my campaign that actually played The Witcher and care for the world and the games and the system and everything around it, the fandom, which were you and 2 friends. We had a bard, we had a witcher, we had a mage, you.
Yes.
People know that. We talked about it a lot in our recaps. And yeah, and then we got to playing. 8 to 12 sessions was what I said, and I think we ended in 10.
Right on the spot.
Exactly in the spot where we wanted to, and it was a great one.
Yeah, I loved it. It was a lot of fun. Connecting the things you threw at us, but not connecting it for us was just perfect. We had to think about stuff on our own, but without having it too easy. Getting some information and then trying to get different set of information to merge them together to the thing we need to know.
Yeah, I think that especially because this campaign was so short, there wasn't also much actually there was no really misconceptions on your side. You guys basically always knew what to do, even though I didn't say it to you. You basically had your information and I added some bits and you were like, okay, now we can connect some more dots. Okay, this makes it obvious we need to go to there and stuff like that. Yeah, it developed from this one shot, right? Where it was just I just had to write a plot, right? I just had to write something. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna flip through this Witcher journal I just got before the one shot, which is why I actually wanted to do the one shot, because I bought the Witcher journal book, which came out at that time, and flipped through it and saw the Pesta, which is a very cool monster and a cool beast in The Witcher. And I was like, okay, how am I gonna get a Pester inside? I want to showcase that the Pester is actually quite dangerous. So I need a huge mass of people. Okay, how about I take a Nilfgaardian encampment in Velen and let my players interact with that and then destroy it. Okay, so I had the general basis. So how am I gonna get a Pesta there? Maybe I can make it transform. That's not something that the people in Witcher do, which is a great adventuring hook, I realized after the one shot, which is why I wanted to do the campaign. I had this very cool plot hook. People transform into monsters at some point. Why do they do that?
That's scary.
And yeah, you were supposed to find some missing soldiers in the swamp, which were infected already and died in the swamp, because the swamp, with its high humidity and dirty water and general eeriness, mystery, made the process speed up, and they died, and you found that out, and then you realized, oh shit, we need to go back. When you realized that something was wrong in the campment from them. So you rushed back, you found the campment dead, and only the pastor, and you followed. We were over. Very cool, very fun for everyone around. Then a week went by. I asked you three to play with me. You said yes. Here we are.
Yeah, and what a journey it was.
Yeah, what a journey it was. It was very fun. We had some very cool stuff.
Especially the last half. I think we got into characters even more then. We got in touch with the world a bit more. We know how we wanted to play our characters. We had some sort of connection then between our player characters, and it was just it just merged into a really fun roleplay experience.
Your first session in the campaign was get to Novigrad and get inside. Then you met one of the Thieves Guilds, one of the Thieves organizations there. You met some NPCs, but generally there wasn't much. Then you had something to do. Then you learned that Triss Marigold was there and needed your help. You helped her, and after you helped, the session where you fled Novigrad.
Yeah.
That was the session where it really got interesting, because I set that up so you guys can meet Triss, get another bit of new information, and get out of Novigrad, because I couldn't have let you stay in Novigrad for the game to work. So then you went outside, then the mystery began. Okay, right, people are transforming. We need to go to Oxenford, where the person that transformed came from.
We suddenly had a reason why we should travel together, and not just, it's just safer. But in Novigrad, there you don't need that anymore. But when we were outside, we had this one situation we all were in twice already, people transforming into monsters. We nearly died twice already together, and now we had this thing that bonded us together to stop this, or to find out at least where what it is, why the people are transforming into monsters.
Then in Oxenford, you found out a lot of stuff. You found out that there was some kind of doctor involved. You found out that the doctor is actually the doctor of the Redanian king. And then you found out his secret hiding spot, his secret laboratory. You found out what he was doing. You went back to Novigrad because you found out that he wanted to go to Skellig. So you went there. You tried to stop him. You followed him to Skellig. You had a session on Skellig where you had some backstory stuff come up. You went further. Then you had the last fight with a higher vampire, and that was very, very, very close.
It was scary as hell.
He wasn't a full higher vampire. He was still in transformation, more or less, in becoming one. So it was not a full blown out high vampire fight, because that one you would have lost that.
Yeah.
But I nerfed the creature a bit to make it at least a hard fight, and you guys rolled really well, and it worked. It was fun. It was very fun. So I want to ask you, as the one person who created the character in this recording, how was character creation?
I thought it was overwhelming at first, but when I read into it, it was pretty easy, because it has a lot of steps. First, you pick your race. You have basically 4 options: Witchers, Elves, Dwarves, and Humans. These are the basic 4 races you can pick from, which in turns have certain feats or interact in certain ways with other races, as the world, or usually they do, as the world provides these information. Then you had to create your backstory with a life path. This life path was some sort of confusing thing for me at first, but it gave great options for backstories, because you have tables you can roll on if you don't really know what you want to do in that. And for every 10 years your character has lived, something happened.
It's a major event that is gonna shape your character.
Exactly.
But these life paths work great, in my opinion. They are great mechanic to make the characters simply more good, to give you a good inspiration of what kind of story a character lives through in this world.
It also gives you simpler options to shape your character's characteristics, how they act and why they do so. Because running your life path and having, for example, like our Witcher did, having a vampire hunt, he knew about vampires a little more than probably a Witcher who wasn't on a vampire hunt. And this is just things that shape your characters, not only knowledge, but the way they act and why or how they act. That's this way in general.
And for DMs, this is great. If your players
Yeah.
roll your life path, you have things you can just take. For example, you have lost your parents.
Yeah, a noon wraith, I think it was.
That is something I can instantly pull out of that. So every time people roll on the life path, more or less, you have something to use.
Yeah, it's basically the knife theory thing where you give with your backstory, you give your DM some knives that he can stab you with. Basically, the life path is every 10 years you roll one of those knives.
But they don't have to be knives per se, right? They're also good things that are gonna happen. But every time it's a thing that the DM can use to further the story of the game.
But because it was so much, because you don't just have just the life path with the events, but you roll on tables for your parents' fates, your family fates, the family status, your home region, where you grew up and how you grew up, your siblings, all that kind of stuff. You create with this life path you run pretty decent amount of NPCs your DM can use for whatever reason he wants to. Then basically you pick your class, which is called a profession. 9 options. We had a Witcher, a Bard, and a Mage. There are several others, but I don't know anything about them. But with these professions you pick, you have some sort of special skill that only this profession has and can gain through, for example, for the Mage it was magic training, where you can roll as a skill check to see if you know some sort of magic ritual, you see some magic formula, or if you see ingredients, are these components for spells they need, or rituals or hexes and stuff like that. You can ascertain more magical things and fuse them together in your head, basically, to get more knowledge out of it than other people can, because you got trained in it. Then you allocate your ability scores, picking your statistics, how you want to increase them. You have a certain amount of points you can spend on that. Then you gain skills that that are not granted by your profession. Like, for example, as a mage, you don't get pick lock as a skill, but for example, if your life path was, hey, I was a locksmith, sure, you can craft and pick locks. So you give yourself that skill. That's how the life path can work, just not only for the backstory, but for actual game mechanics as well. Then you allocate how much coin you get, so how much money you can spend on any sort of equipment you want to have outside of the starting equipment from your profession. But that's all pretty straightforward. That's more or less the basics of the character creation.
Yeah. Simple question. Did you like it?
I think it has its pros and cons. Can be overwhelming at first, but if you get into it, it's actually pretty easy. It's a nice system.
Okay.
I think not suited for first-time TTRPG players per se, because it can be quite complex with all the different skills you have at your disposal.
Yeah, you have a big skill list, and some of them are very specific, some of them are very broad.
Yeah.
There's a big difference in skill broadity, which is actually something to think about. Perception is in every game I know, basically. And it's always used for everything.
Yeah.
Is perception a broken skill? That's a discussion to be had, not here now. But it's something I thought about before. Is perception broke?
Probably is to some extent.
I don't want you to answer the question necessarily. I just wanted to put this out there, that's a discussion actually people have, and I think is worth having.
Definitely.
Thinking about how skills work. Because in this system, it's very clear to see some skills are very, very, very specific.
Yeah.
Some, like awareness, can be used for investigation checks or perception in more D&D terms. There is a lot you can do with awareness, but then there is a skill called
grooming and style is one. It is super niche. I think when you need to go to a king's court and have to dress up for that without disguising yourself as someone you are not, I think that would be one option for you to roll on that, probably.
I mean, now the thing is, there's also a disguise skill.
Yeah, because if you disguise yourself, it's through making a disguise, but going to a king's court where you don't have to disguise yourself, but have to dress up to the occasion.
Yeah,
that's like super specific, and I dumped a lot of points into this because my character would.
The thing is about it is, I think it's also down to the game we played, which didn't involve any high-ranking politics.
Yeah.
Because we didn't involve any courts, any kings, any high-ranking officials, anything like that. So the skill was more or less useless.
Yep, but it isn't. It's just super niche.
Yeah.
We didn't get to that niche. That's the point. But
even then, I think in the Witcher game, it isn't even that super niche, because the Witcher game includes a lot of these court politics, if you think about it.
And I think if we would have played a longer campaign, this might have come into play a lot more.
Oh, definitely. If you would have played like for 2 years straight the system, there would have been courts, there would have been kings and emperors. You would have probably stood before any kind of king. Definitely. You can trust me on that. I just didn't think it would be right to put you in front of a king without anything actually to do with it.
Yeah, it would just feel off just to use this specific thing, but yeah, it turned out still amazing. But that's mostly it for character creation on my end, I think.
Okay.
One thing I would like to add, the signature abilities, I love them. It's just cool, because that's one thing that makes every class unique in a way, which somebody else cannot get in to some extent. Yeah, so because you were the GM, obviously, you know probably a lot about the GM section of the book.
Yeah.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I can elaborate on that. The GM section is, in my opinion, very great. It's a good one. I have seen a lot of bad ones. I have seen a lot of ones where they were not good. The DMG, for example, in D&D. It's a useful book, in my opinion, but there's also a lot of stuff in there that's just not useful. But some stuff is great. But generally, this book makes it very clear to the GM, very upfront on the first page of it, players are not your enemies. You are not playing against them. They are playing a game which you constitute. You are the game world around them. It's not a versus mentality. That's important. The section talks about how to, for example, lead a story, because sometimes your players get sidetracked and you don't know anything about it, which is, I think, very useful to new GMs. Having a section that talks about how to create invisible walls without creating invisible walls is very important. It's a skill that they have to learn. And again, some people might say you don't even create invisible walls, you don't create a plot hook and all that stuff. And I know, yes, that you can do that, but some new GMs just want to run the one shot they had in mind and need to create these invisible barriers for their players. So having a section on how to do that without making it feel like them just saying no is very great for the GMs. Here it says tie the things to the life path, like we talked about. It's great. The GM can use the life path to further the story they want to tell with their players. So it also talks about the NPCs, and like they call it special snowflake. Yeah, like GMPCs are a whole lot of discussion to be had, and I'm not gonna go into that. It talks about romance and how to not make it weird is one of the big sections in there, which I think is great because it's a role-playing game. Sometimes that role includes having a love interest. Sometimes that role includes having a love interest with another player character. And it talks about separation of the two. The people at the table are not flirting with each other when the characters are, right? You don't flirt through your character. I have made it clear that if we are playing a game and they want to romance, that's straight up character thing. That's not something like they can't use their character to romance another person's character because the actual player wants to romance the player. I don't do I don't allow that. I just say don't make it fucking weird, right?
Yeah, that's
just don't make it weird at the table for everyone involved. And the best thing I found to not make it weird is just say don't be weird and have the fun you want to have. And the game makes it very clear that in the Witcher world, romance and also the sexual act is very important to the game or to the world. It's part of the world. It says here with romance comes sex, and that's the thing the Witcher game talks about, that is an actual thing, and if everyone's okay with it and can separate actual world from in-game, then everything is fine.
Definitely.
It makes it very clear in running the system that it isn't epic fantasy. There is no I'm a fucking hero, I'm gonna slay the dragon. It's a gruesome, cruel, racist, and that's important. It's a racist world. It makes a very clear fact that the game world is racist. The game itself isn't. The game world is. People in the world, NPCs in the world, are racist.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
Exactly. It's not for everyone to talk about this. And that's fine. The system makes it clear that topic is there and people need to decide if they like it or not. Because again, separation. Separate from out game and in game, and that's important. It's a discussion to be had before playing. We had that discussion, made it very clear.
Yeah, and I think we are all the time on this topic on the same page anyways, just to put it out there. There is not really a discussion to be had between us because
we still have it.
Yeah, it's just to clarify it again.
Yeah, exactly. Then it talks about the game being brutal, the game being one-shot kill game.
We experienced that firsthand.
We experienced that more or less firsthand. The game is, and that's why the system also has a section, Life's Hard, enjoy it, which I find is very fun, because the system basically says, hey, the system is very hard, the world is cruel, and the game can kill you instantly. So if your character can, they would enjoy the simple things. Getting to a tavern and drinking a beer is something to celebrate if your life consists of killing monsters as a Witcher.
Yeah.
So the game makes it very clear that the GMs should put in rewards and definitely places where the players can be out of harm, so they can actually enjoy. Because it's a yin and yang effect, right? If they can't enjoy the peace they get, they can't enjoy the combat because it becomes the status quo.
Yeah.
And that's not fun.
Definitely.
So yeah, and then it talks about encounters. And as I said, that this game could be basically a duet one, because the only way you can build encounters is the number of monsters is equal to the players plus 2, the number of players plus 2. There are simple categories to divide monsters in. It's easy, medium, and hard. And they have a category, and each category is split into simple, complex, and difficult. Basically, how hard hitting is this monster? Is it a strong monster? Is it a very simple monster? And how tactical is it? Like, if it's difficult or complex, it's a different experience than a simple monster. But generally, there are very easy monsters, which are, for example, drowners. Everybody who plays the game knows drowners. Those are very easy, simple monster. But another easy, difficult monster would, I think, be the foglings. They are very easy to kill, but they are very hard to hit, for example. And that creates a very different experience. So it makes a good point of how to balance encounters. It also makes it clear that this game doesn't actually need a Witcher to run the game. But it's most of the time very beneficial to have a Witcher in the game when most of the encounters become monsters.
Definitely.
You can completely take out the monsters anywhere in this game. That's something actually you can do. You can just take them out and just have human versus human or dwarf against human combat, and not have the monster side. Them just being in the forest and being why the party just plays in the city where there wouldn't be any monsters.
Yeah, and you can just have a lot of social encounters, because the social tree and the skill tree is just huge.
You can do a lot of stuff. So yeah, the GM part is great because it gives me a lot of stuff I can actually use for different systems as well, which I like as a GM thing. Like, the GM section in the book should be somewhat system agnostic, but at the same time be very specific to the system. But there should be some stuff I should be able to use for every system. And this one provides that for me.
Yeah.
Okay, next point is a big one. I believe the system runs on 3 big different pillars. That is, 1, the crafting system, which makes the system unique, the combat system it runs on, and the world it uses. Those are the 3 big things this system utilizes to make the experience the Witcher-like.
Yeah, I would agree 100% on that, because I think the crafting system is so not overly complex, but complex enough that it is a vital part of the game. So what about the world building?
The world the book uses is vast. It's huge. It's incredible too. Yeah, so first of all, the book, I think, plays in the year 1272, which is the same year The Witcher 3 runs in. So the Wild Hunt, Ciri, Geralt, everyone is running around on the continent, and you can find them and talk to them and interact with them and cool stuff. But generally, you're mostly not encountering those legendary heroes you know from books and games. They are in the book. You have the stat blocks for them, but normally you don't. We had Triss, but that was about it. We had Shani, which more or less was only a minor NPC in our game. She helped you a bit, and then that was it. You heard mentions of Geralt and Yennefer and Ciri, but you didn't encounter them. The world building section does a great part of showing you how the world works. It showcases every different region, the Northern Kingdoms, Nilfgaard, Skellig. It makes an importance on alliances and how political schemes in The Witcher are very important, which is why the grooming skill probably is very important in the game for someone like a bard or someone like a court magician like you were, because normally there's a lot of political intrigue in The Witcher, or a lot of alliance and a lot of political structures you have to know, meaning you have to play with these structures. Then the grooming skill could be very important because first appearance matters. Then the book talks about, for example, we're looking at Nilfgaard. Nilfgaard is very big. There are very many different regions of Nilfgaard that operate completely differently. It showcases every single one of those, so you can put your characters in there and let them run around, and you have basic understanding of politics, culture, and social constructs every time. You get a little bit about the far north or Zerrikania. Not much detail on those, I think. But the thing is, if you want to run adventures there, that could be good and bad, depending on what you like as a DM, because, well, you can world build basically around it, right? You have not much information from the book, so you can build a lot more on that. You can also play a game in the very established world of the games and books, where you have a lot of world building. Both work.
Yeah.
Both are good. So it talks about the religion in the world and its place, and how important religion becomes in a world which is very brutal and gruesome and deadly. Religion is important. People need something to cling to. Some people need hope, and religion normally provides that. Every single region is with a coat of arms. And do you know how much I love that in a world building book? A coat of arms can give me so much. Colors, symbols, all of that stuff. It's so important when you actually go into how coat of arms work. It not only gives me a thing I can give my players, saying, hey, you see this coat of arms, and then they go, oh shit, this is Nilfgaard or something, but also a black coat of arms means something different than the purple one, than the green one, and these give a lot of information you just can drag just from a single image, not taking up any space of text.
Yeah.
Then a lot of information on social, cultural, and political positions of each country. They're obviously world building the monsters. There's a bestiary, which is gorgeous. It's gorgeously illustrated. You get a lot of stuff in the Witcher journal book, which is a supplementary bestiary. You have side stories from the one Witcher that wrote that book, where some monsters are encountered, but you have new monsters, and every one of them has lore to it, where you can find them, how they act, how they work, what they do, and all that stuff. And it's so great to see that. You can use that. It's great for world building and great to create adventures, because again, the system has its world as one of the backbones. The world in The Witcher creates the story your players are in, which is why there's a big section, for example, on decisive regions where you could run your games. Regions where there are problems your players need to fix. Regions where your players can encounter major NPCs that need help. All of those are things where you can create stories, or your players can live stories. You can create these scenarios that your players can get immersed in, because the book makes it very clear that there are regions that need the attention of, in quotation marks, heroes. So yeah, the world building section is great. It's also fairly brief if you only look at the 30 pages of the world, which you can read rather quickly, I would say. Then you have the bestiary, which is also long, but it's stat blocks, it's art, it's a lot of lore, but it's very easily readable in my opinion. So that's great. It gives me as the DM a lot of stuff to use with not much to sift through. Not much useless stuff I can't use.
That's always good. It makes the job of the DM way easier to make it feel immersive.
Okay, the next pillar is combat. Do you want to say anything to that?
Yeah, I think it is fairly complex without overly complicated, because it needs to be that complex. Because in a world as gruesome with monsters and all that stuff, you need a combat system that represents it. And you need a combat system where you can target specific parts of your enemy to deal insane amounts of damage. For example, shooting an arrow through the skull of an enemy is a thing you can do here, because you can aim at the head directly. You have these hit zones you have to keep in mind, because some monsters may be vulnerable and at specific target zones and stuff like that. Then you have, of course, your basic system like a move action and the normal action you can do. Then there are the fast strikes and strong strikes for melee characters.
That is one of the big things I hate about the system. It could be because I didn't read it well enough, because I overlooked that, but seriously, why have fast strikes or strong strikes? Why have it? I don't understand it, because you have the option when you strike a monster to either make fast strikes, which are 2 strikes, 2 attacks, or you make a strong strike, which is 1 attack, which is just a stronger strike, right?
Yeah.
Now I understand that these 2 types are important, because in the Witcher games, for example, you have the option to choose between light attacks and strong attacks, right? It's faster attacks or stronger attacks. I understand that. But my problem is that when I read you make an attack, for me that means 1 strike with your sword. Normally, that could be, why not just say an attack in this system means you make 2 attacks or 1 strong attack? Why have this section not right at the beginning, this is an attack. As this is like, the thing is, reading it as fast strike versus strong strike read to me as those are two options you can take. And I was like, wait, and I was looking at it and I was like, okay, you can make one attack with your sword. You have the option of a fast strike or a strong strike. Wait, where are the disadvantages of those? Because there are none, because it's the normal attack. There shouldn't be any, you shouldn't have any disadvantages to the normal attacks. I made a mistake. I didn't understand that you always do 2 strikes or always 1 strong strike. I always thought you do 1 strike, or you can choose to take a disadvantage. Like, you could use stamina to make a second attack. That would be a fast strike. Or you could use stamina to make the two attacks into one and make a strong strike.
Yeah, I think it should be more specified right next to the actions you can take during your turn. Because you have the move and the action, which is pick up or unlock or stuff like that. All the things you can do while in combat. But there's obviously the attack action. And if you specified what the attack action really means right next to it, or right in the text where it says attack action, that would make it a lot easier. But regarding the actions and strong strikes, like you mentioned, you can use your stamina to gain another action on your turn. Because like you mentioned, you can just do 1 attack with a strong strike, for example, and then just end your turn there. Or you can expend stamina to take another attack action and, for example, take this time 2 swipes with 2 fast strikes.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of customization. Like, you can make your turn look like however you want. You have the options to make the very cool turn, but have to pay the price for it.
Exactly.
But you can, in D&D, you are very limited because you only have 1 action. But here you basically have the option to say, okay, I'm gonna take my stamina away and actually make a second attack. So
definitely. And one thing I didn't really get into because I didn't need to was the armor section of the combat, because as a mage I don't really have any armor, and most of my attacks ignore that.
Yeah.
Because fire damage is just fire damage. When I chuck a fireball at you, it doesn't matter. Where I hit, you just burn. So I don't know, maybe you can say something about it, because I don't know anything about it.
I mean, the thing with armor it's pretty straightforward. You wear your armor, it has a specific value for the location where the people hit, and if you get hit, you just subtract the value you have from that damage. If there's still damage left, you take damage. If not, you don't take damage. In both instances, though, you lose one of your stopping value, one of the actual armor you have, meaning that getting hit often is very bad, which is why, for example, fast strikes are very good against humanoids in armor, because you're gonna wear down their armor.
Yeah.
You can also do strong strikes, but those chuck down less armor but deal more damage, so probably deal damage over the armor of them. That's why fast strikes and strong strikes become even more important, because armor actually gets reduced every time you get hit, and you need to repair it. Coming to the crafting system in a bit, but there's a lot of stuff about this, about armor, and the rest of it is pretty straightforward. You have the criticals and the fumbles, which are very important, because in the Witcher system you roll d10s, and if you roll a 10, you roll the dice again, and you do that as long as you don't get another 10. If you don't get another 10, you roll again, and you roll again, and you roll again. And with that, you get 2 values, but the enemy rolls 2 defense, right? And then you have 2 values. If the attack value is 7 over the defense value, that's a critical hit. That means the enemy takes extra damage and gets a critical wound of some degree. There are simple, difficult, complex, and I think lethal or whatever. There are 4 stages of critical wounds, and they are fucking brutal. Everything that's not a simple critical wound is already very ugly. And then you can also fumble, which, if you subtract something, and then you fumble. And those are basically, you lose your weapon, you take extra damage, you shoot your arrow at a friend. The game makes very clear what happens if you fumble and how deadly that can be. How important it is to not fumble. Fun, right?
Yeah.
But it has these critical tables for wounds, and those are very important because that involves healing, and healing is very fun in this game. For example, you have the simple critical table, which range from a cracked jaw to a sprained leg. Nothing too major. It's ugly, but it's okay. Then you have the complex critical tables, which are a head wound, a fractured leg. The difficult ones would be a compound leg fracture, basically snapping the leg in half. And the deadly critical table is basically losing the leg itself. There is so much about this. And now you have healing. You can stabilize critical wound, for example. That you can do with on the field, more or less, with first aid or the doctor thing, the doctor class has a certain ability for that. That means you have something, at least. You lose a little bit of the disadvantages you got from the actual effect, but you still have some. For example, a dismembered arm, well, the arm is still useless, but you don't bleed anymore. You don't lose any more HP, but the arm is useless.
Yeah.
And then you can actually get to a doctor and let it be treated. And a treated wound is basically the effect that stays after the critical wound is done, after you're done with healing. For example, a separated spine or decapitation. Yeah, this wound cannot be treated. There's nothing you can do about that.
Sure, you can sew the head back on, but it won't do anything.
It won't
would
do
just
stuff.
look work. It was just look weird.
Mm-hmm.
Just in the coffin with a stitching around the neck because you got decapitated and someone said, hey, I might treat it, and just stitched it back on.
Yeah, but the thing is, generally, you can stabilize critical wound, which basically just means minoring the effect it has, and then you can treat it later on, which makes it more or less go away. But generally, healing is, first of all, someone needs to heal you with a first aid or the doctor skill check to actually allow you to heal. And then you only heal per day a certain amount of your HP back. And for example, our Witcher that had an infected arm had 4 days of this arm still more or less being detrimental to him than actually helpful, because he always had a -1 to every check he did with his left arm or his right arm. I don't care. But that's the thing. These wounds persist for very long times.
Yeah.
They are very deadly, which adds to the Witcher. Sometimes you need a week to recover from a fight. And you need to take that week because the next fight you're dead.
Exactly. You need to know what you're getting yourself into, and that's when we can get into crafting.
Yeah.
Because crafting, it is needed. Because, as we said, all those injuries can happen really, really quickly. And to prevent them, you need, for example, as a Witcher, you can brew potions, you can brew oils, or use concoctions, or anything of the sort to help enhance your abilities, or heal damage again, or deal more damage to make it go over quickly.
Well, the thing is, you need 3 things for the crafting to work in The Witcher. You need to have the diagram, the components, and the crafting DC. You need to need to make the skill check. You have the diagram, either you have it memorized or you have it. Then you determine if you have the components. You can buy them, you can salvage them from enemies, the nature, or wherever. And then you need to make a roll. You either fail or make that roll, right? There's only fail and success in this game. It's a binary system, more or less. Again. So if you fail, you can make another roll at the same DC, and if you meet that, you at least get half the materials back as a salvage roll, which is good because if you fail crafting something, you lose materials in the process, right? That's normal.
And components are expensive sometimes.
Yeah, but sometimes you can also find them in the nature, right?
Yeah.
Now comes the fun part, actually, of the crafting system, which I think is very good done because it emulates how good the Witcher game does it, or how simple the Witcher game does it. Alchemy. It works kind of the same. You need to have the formula, you need to have the ingredients, you need to make the check, you can salvage. So you have basically only 9 substances you can find from different sources, either monster components, flowers in the wild, or anything, and those are used for the formula. So you have these very simple formulas that basically ask of you to create your own potion. Like, for example, I could make a simple potion from a flower, or I could also take the heart of a monster. Both of them have the same component I need. So it's a lot of flavor, I would say. It allows a lot of flavor in creating the potions you actually want to create, which is great. It's simple, effective, and it works to the point. Like, the crafting system is simple, but it works, and that's important. Like, a crafting system, if it is too intricate, I won't be the one crafting stuff. I don't care about it then at that point.
Yeah.
As a DM, I would just write it out and say, make some checks and it works. And here, the crafting system is just making a few checks, checking if you have the ingredients, and then you're good to go, more or less. So yeah, the crafting system is geniusly made. It works great for The Witcher because The Witcher, the world is about preparation, right? Being prepared for a fight, like you said. You need to be prepared because the fights are deadly. And this crafting system supports that because it is simple. It lets you as a player make preparations without spending an entire session on preparing.
And I think it is simple, but it is not too simple because you have all those different types of crafting you can do.
Yeah.
You can smith, you can brew potions, you can make bombs, you can make traps, all that stuff. It is simple, but not simple at the same time sometimes, but not overly complicated or too complex.
Yeah. To the point, simple,
Yeah.
but it's good enough for you to actually use it. Because if it's too simple, you don't need a crafting system. If it's too complicated, nobody wants to use it. And it's exactly in that sweet spot of simplicity yet effectiveness. So, is there anything else you want to talk about in the mechanics?
One thing that is hugely important, not everybody can fight, especially monsters. If you're a normal human bard, for example, like we have, you are more or less useless in fights. Because you don't have a silver sword, you don't know how to use it, you don't have armor, you just get one shot by any type of monster. But magic and silver swords can get through resistances from monsters, and you can actually deal damage to them. That's one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, I believe the thing about this is just the thing that the game works this way. Not everyone is supposed to fight. And
that's why there are witches, for example, to fight the monsters.
Yeah, I think they knew this. And it's an intended thing, and it's great. I love it that not everyone is combat focused, because it creates the need for not combat encounters.
Yeah.
For me as the DM, definitely. I need to put in encounters now. I wouldn't need to be forced, but I am forced by the game to do it. And it's great that the game, because I have a bard that can't fight or use a dagger even, basically says, hey, I'm useless in fights. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna make sure you don't feel useless through the game. So I create enough social encounters for you guys to get through.
Exactly. You have to split your attention to between social encounters, investigating encounters, and fighting encounters, more or less evenly, to help make feel everybody included in the story you are telling.
In the same vein, there is the verbal combat system, because when initiative is rolled, you have the optional rule of initiating verbal combat, basically stopping fighting and talking and persuading, seducing, insulting, or something like that. We didn't use it. Like, you had the option to talk in fights, but I wouldn't have made it basically verbal HP or something. I didn't like it. I didn't like the rule, but it's an optional rule, so I just scratched it from our game. But I believe it's a great rule to have for some people. I believe that the rule is great to have. So yeah, I believe the verbal combat rule is great, just not for our table.
Yeah, that's about sums it up. And then I have a question for you after all our talk.
Yeah.
Do you think, is it a good system?
Top 5 of systems I ever played, would say. It's definitely my top 5 with D&D, The Dark Eye, Call of Cthulhu, and I think at that point it would probably be there. Maybe Cyberpunk, which is also by the same creators, are Talsorian Games. It's a great system. I love it. I love the world. I love what they did with it. I love that they made it clear how the game is supposed to work. At some points, when I read the combat section, I was like, okay, I have to reference a lot of different pages. I want that basically in order. And that is hard. I know that is hard. If they would have put it in order for me, some other people wouldn't have gotten it. And I believe that it's a great system. Definitely my top 5 of all time. I had a lot of fun playing, and it was great. Same question to you, though, as a player.
Yeah, I don't have played as much systems as you, but I would definitely put it in my top 5 or top 3, because I haven't played that many systems, but I really, really enjoyed playing in it. I don't have any experience mastering the game, because I didn't, but I would most certainly like to.
You can. I'm always down to play. I have ideas.
Nice. I might think about a story in the Witcher setting, because it is pretty specific setting where I need to think more about the story I want to tell, or we want to tell. Yeah, but I would like to try it one day.
You should.
And did you learn anything from this system?
Oh, a lot. I believe that this system has taught me so much. Very much. For one thing is that the world creates great scenarios for players to create stories in, or to live stories in. Instead of creating a story and creating a world that supports that story, I have a world that has a lot of places that are broken, and that creates the stories my players want to live. That's one thing I learned, and that's what I implemented basically after I have read the world section in this book into my homebrew world. My homebrew world was basically just meant to support the few stories I want to tell in it, but now I'm like, nope, it's a world that is very broken in a lot of places, and those places are the places I put my players into and let them decide how this disruptive, broken place influences the story they want to tell. And yeah, I have implemented that, and I'm probably gonna keep that for the rest of my DMing because I love it so far.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing the game gives you as a GM to implement in not only this type of setting, but in every other setting you would like to implement it as well.
Yeah.
I think I learned stuff about making preparations before you fight in general, because this system is lethal as hell. Everything can go sideways. Shit hits the fan pretty quick in this one.
Yeah, it can really quickly go to shit.
To gather information you need, but not waste any time either, because the world is moving around it, and it just doesn't stop for you. It moves, it is just organic and natural. So you have to take the time you need, but cannot allow you to waste any. Because it is moving.
As you said, it's a moving world. You need to make preparations. You need to take some time in researching stuff or getting information. You need the time to think in the game. The game gives you the time. The game encourages you to do that, to get to know tactics of monsters, to have the monster lore like witches have. But as you said, it doesn't waste any of that time. It's quick to the point in what you need to do and how you do it, so you don't waste time at the table. No time when we played the game I felt like the game was grinding to a halt, which is a disaster in my opinion at the table. If nobody knows what to do at the table, even the GM doesn't, then something went wrong in my opinion. And I need to find a way to fix it. The best way to fix it is to not have it, is to prevent it. And this game does a good job of saying where you need to take a step back at some point, stop and look at stuff, but it doesn't waste any time of the people outside of the game. That was our review, you could say, of the Witcher game. Again, we're not reviewers. We also weren't paid or have gotten any endorsement in no way or form. We want to say that clear. This is just our opinion. We like this system because we played in it for 10 sessions and it was great. We loved it.
It was awesome. It was an engaging story.
That was an episode on a different system than we usually talk about. If we normally put everything into D&D context because it's the widest known system. But again, with this episode, I think we have showcased a lot that we like playing different systems. We don't like only playing D&D. And I, at least, and I think you do too, encourage everyone to play different systems in their life. If you can and want to, do it. Find a system you want to play where you like the setting, where you've heard good things about the rules, and play it, because you can learn so much by branching your playstyle.
Yeah, exactly.
And I did a lot through this game. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
So follow us on Instagram and Twitter at DoubleDM
Yeah.
We have nothing else to plug. I was kind of scared. Well, we don't have the world building panel is out already. It should have released a while ago already. You can listen to that if you haven't already, because a lot of the stuff they actually said, I can see when they wrote down the world for this system, right? They took a lot of inspiration from the books and the games, but they wrote some stuff in to make a TTRPG stuff. Actually, they applied some stuff here, I would say. So yeah, listen to the world building panel, follow us on social media, check there for updates, come to our Discord server. Link is found in our link tree for that. Join the Hope for TTRPG's Discord server. And that's all for this week of Double DM Podcast.
Thanks for listening. Have a good one. Hear you on the next one. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.